Good morning. Welcome. I'm Senator Bob Guida from District 2. Today we'll be holding a meeting of the Senate Ways and Means Committee. Before we get started, I'll read through a checklist to ensure that the meeting that we're holding is in compliance with the right to know law. As chair of the Senate Ways and Means Committee, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12 pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04 and its extensions, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. In accordance with the emergency order, I'm confirming that we are providing public access to the meeting by telephone, with additional access possible by video and other electronic means. We're utilizing Zoom for this electronic meeting. All members of the committee and selected legislative staff have the ability to communicate contemporaneously in this meeting through this platform, and the public has access to contemporaneously watch and or listen to the meeting on Zoom or YouTube and via the following and phone by following the directions and links provided on the General Court website. We've provided a public notice of this necessary information for accessing the meeting in the Senate calendar, providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anyone has a problem, please email remotesenate@leg.state.nh.us or call 603-271-6931. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting, it will be adjourned and rescheduled. Please note that all votes taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. And finally, let's start the meeting by taking roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, please also state where you are and if anyone else is in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. I'll now call the roll. Senator D'Alessandro.
Senator Lou D'Alessandro, I'm in my home in Manchester and I'm all alone.
Senator Daniels.
Senator Gary Daniels, I'm in the Senate chambers.
Senator Rosenwald.
Senator Cindy Rosenwald, I'm in the Senate chamber.
And Senator Hennessy.
Good morning, Erin Hennessy from Littleton. I am in the Senate chamber.
And I'm Senator Bob Guida, present in the Senate chamber as well. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll begin the agenda for today as two pieces. The first is a presentation by the DRA, and I'm assuming Commissioner Stepp is available or one of her cohorts. Linda and okay, Senator, and I'm sorry, Lindsay and Melissa, welcome. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Lindsay Stepp, Commissioner at the New Hampshire Department of Revenue Administration. Melissa Rollins, Senior Financial Analyst, is also with me today. And Senator, if it's okay with you, we'll just kind of jump right in.
Please.
Okay. So there are two things that we wanted to go over with you today as you begin your revenue estimating process. The first is a response to Senator Rosenwald's question when we presented updated revenue estimates from last week, and that is the updated fiscal note for Senate Bill 3. So I have provided, hopefully to all of you, a copy of our fiscal note, what we call our fiscal note quick guide. This takes our fiscal note and puts it in a little bit more of an easily digestible format. The only change that we've made since the last time we presented to you was we updated the starting point, so the total amount of PPP. So on May 4th of this month, the SBA reported that total appropriations for PPP of $814 billion had been exhausted. So the SBA has distributed all of the money that has been allocated for PPP that did come ahead of what was the May 31st deadline of this month. So with total PPP distributed, we updated our starting point of the $814 billion. We then followed the same methodology that we previously presented, which arrives at a revenue impact for New Hampshire of $99.4 million. So that is our current estimate. We will be working with the House Ways and Means Committee this week to determine what fiscal years that 99.4 million will fall into. So we'll be kind of spreading that 99.4 million out over a few fiscal years based on some analysis that we've performed and some of the things that we've been hearing from other states. And once that's concluded, middle of this week, we'll provide that breakdown to you so you have the most updated information with respect to that. So that's just the quick update on Senate Bill 3. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions from members of the committee? Senator Daniels?
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioner.
Good morning, Senator.
You and I had talked last week or the week before regarding businesses that may have made more in 2020 than they did 2019. Does this take into consideration anything that needs to be returned by businesses? And I think what you had said at that time, that a decision still had not been made.
Certainly, great question, Senator. So we're kind of talking about two different things here. So PPP, run by the Small Business Administration, starts out as a loan. If it is spent according to the provisions of the program, businesses can apply to the Small Business Administration to have that loan forgiven, and it becomes a grant. And that treatment as a grant, or that conversion of that loan into a grant, is what Senate Bill 3 is dealing with, and how that grant should then be reflected on your tax return. The potential payback of money that you and I discussed was with respect to the Main Street Relief Fund and the Self-Employed Livelihood Fund. And that was money, CARES Act money, that the state received that we then distributed to businesses during the pandemic to kind of help them through. Those businesses are in process with an extended deadline of today to report their final numbers to us. And as you mentioned, Senator, we'll be comparing 2020 gross receipts, including any aid, both state and federal aid, to 2019 numbers. And any difference there may need to be recouped by the state. As you mentioned, that is still an outstanding question. The governor and Gopher have been speaking with the U.S. Treasury to make sure that we have the most up-to-date guidance and understanding as to whether or not any money will need to be recouped. So that still is an open question, and we're working with Gopher on a daily basis to get that resolved and get an answer out to those businesses.
Okay, thank you. Follow up?
Please.
When I look online and try to find out information on Gopher, it seems like it's been disbanded. Because I can't find any members or.
Certainly. Okay, so Taylor Caswell is the executive director at Gopher. He has a deputy director as well, Chase Hageman, who we've been working with. I know I still have 4 employees that are assigned to Gopher that are doing work there. So I'd be happy to help you get in touch with folks at Gopher if you need that.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? Commissioner, you're working on the fiscal year allocation for the 99.4 million impact. Does that include both tranches of the PPP?
Great question, Senator. Great question. Yes, it does. So that will include the total amount, the 814 billion that results in the 99.4. That is both tranches. Total, all of the allocation has been spent. And so we'll be taking all of that into account when we provide the fiscal year breakdown.
All right. And do you have any sense of when that will be available?
We're hoping middle to late this week. We are participating in the House Ways and Means work sessions on Senate Bill 3 this week. And so we anticipate to have that information to you shortly.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Hearing none. As always, thank you. It's a pleasure for the diligence with which you perform your duties.
Certainly. So then if you're willing, I was just going to go quickly through the changes in House Bill 2 and give you a brief overview of the fiscal impact, and happy to answer any questions as I go so that you understand our methodology. So again, we've provided a fiscal note quick guide. As I mentioned, I'll go through the key sections for DRA with respect to revenue impacts. The first is Section 80, which repeals the interest and dividends tax. So this proposed legislation would start by slowly reducing the rate until we get to a full repeal. So the rate would be reduced from 5% to 4% for taxable periods ending on or after December 31st of 23. We would then move to 3% for taxable periods ending on or after December 31st, 24, 2% for 25, and then 1% for 26. The interest and dividends tax would then fully be repealed for taxable periods beginning after December 31st of 26. So given this kind of stepped approach, you will see that the revenue impact does start to occur in fiscal year 23. And what we've done to determine this revenue impact is look at how interest and dividends tax revenue flows in throughout the year, because we're getting different types of payments throughout the year. So estimate payments are dealing obviously with the current year. Return or extension period payments will be for the prior year. And so when you have the tax rate changing, it doesn't necessarily impact the next year at 100% to start. So we've kind of looked at how the payments come in. We've then applied the appropriate percentages of the payments to the relevant tax rate. And so what you will see in HB2 and in the surplus statement is a $6.3 million impact in fiscal year 23. So no revenue impact in 22. The fiscal impact starts in 23 with 6.3 million. In the fiscal note quick guide, you can then see how the revenue impact proceeds through the remaining years. You'll see in general a 1%, the change of 1% from say 5% to 4% or 4% to 3%. Results in roughly a $20 million revenue impact. And you'll see how that kind of phases in, but we just have the beginning of it in fiscal year 23. Moving to the next change, it's section 94, and it is a decrease in the meals and rentals tax rate. The rate would decrease from the current 9% to 8.5% for taxable periods beginning on or after October 1 of 2021. So with the applicability date of October 1 of 2021, and given the 1 month delay in the reporting of revenue, the first time that we would see an impact to this change would be for meals and rentals tax revenue received in November of 21. And then looking at November of 21, through the remainder of the fiscal year, you will see that the 2022 revenue impact is 11.4, almost 11.5 million. And then in fiscal year 23, you'll see it's 19, almost 19.1 million. And again, the difference there is a full fiscal year of the impact as opposed to a partial year, given the current applicability date of October 1, 2021. We are comfortable with that applicability date. It allows us enough time to change our systems and our forms and get notice out to our meals and rentals operators to make sure that they collect the proper amount of tax. So that October date works from us from a tax administration perspective. The next set of changes is section 97, which changes the filing threshold for the business enterprise tax. The BET has two different thresholds. The first is gross business receipts, which is moving from 222,000 to 250,000. And then there's also the enterprise value tax-based threshold, which is going to move from 111,000 to 250,000. So those two thresholds will be in line with one another. They currently are not. So the proposals in HB2 align those two thresholds. This will result in about a $3.1 million loss. It also, though, results in a fair number of tax returns not needing to be filed anymore. So as the thresholds go up, we need to receive less returns. Businesses need to file fewer returns. So we're anticipating almost 35,000 fewer returns to be filed, which is good news for us and obviously good news for taxpayers as well. So again, this would align both BET thresholds to the $250,000 amount. The next change is in section 100, where the bet rate is being reduced from the current 0.6% to 0.55 for taxable periods ending on or after December 31st of 2022. And then section 101 reduces the BPT rate from the current 7.7% to 7.6%, again, for taxable periods ending on or after December 31st of 2022. Again, similar to the interest and dividends tax, we did an analysis to look at when the revenue is received during the fiscal year, what tax year that applies to. And so you'll see there is a bit of a delay with the percentages being 15% occurring 2 tax years prior, 63% in the immediate tax year prior, and then 22% in the current tax period. So applying those percentages and moving the rates to the new lower amounts, you'll see beginning in fiscal year 2022, we have a total revenue impact of $4.7 million for bet, and then that goes to $13.3 million in 23. And for BPT, we have 1.2 million for 22 and 3.6 million for 23. So again, lowering the rates, looking at how the revenue comes in during the year and making the appropriate changes as those new rates phase in. The next relevant change is in sections 104 and 105. And this would put a cap on the credit carryover that businesses are allowed to receive. So a credit carryover occurs when a business pays more or has more on their account than their current tax liability. So through their estimate payments or their extension payment, they paid more to the DRA than their current tax liability. And then they can either take that overpayment, request it as a refund, or keep it on their account for the future and kind of use up that credit going into the future. So what sections 104 and 105 do is they first cap the credit carryover at 500% of the business's tax liability in the current year. Any amount over that 500% would be refunded. And that would begin for taxable periods ending on or after December 31st of 2022. We then reduce that limit or that cap to 250% for taxable periods ending on or after December 31st of 2025, and then down to 100% for taxable periods ending on or after December 31st of 2027. So if you look at that 100%, essentially what that means is if I paid 4 $100 estimates to the state, so I had $400, but my total liability was only $100, I would be allowed to keep $200 or keep $100 as a credit, and I would need to be refunded the $200. So I couldn't keep more than my current year's liability on account with the state. So this is reducing the state's liability, essentially. It's going to reduce the amounts that we could be liable to pay back to businesses. We're going to refund them at the time of filing the return. Section 106 creates a commission to study this as well, to study the credit carryovers for BPT and for BET. You'll see that we have a wide range of a revenue impact here, and the timing is somewhat unknown. So there's kind of 2 ways that we've anticipated the timing to occur. The first assumes that no business would make any adjustments to their behavior or their payments until the CCO cap is in place. So they would keep their credits that they currently have, they would continue making their payments, and then when that CCO cap is in place, they would get a refund for the excess. The other scenario that we look into is anticipating that taxpayers know that this legislation is coming. They will start to use down any CCOs or use up any CCOs that they have on file, therefore potentially adjusting their estimate and return and extension payments. Using tax year 2018 data, the total fiscal impact would be 92.3 million, but that is spread over a number of years as this cap is phased in, starting again at 500, going to 250, and then to 100%. And also the two scenarios in terms of when taxpayers would start making adjustments to their behavior. So you'll see for fiscal year 22, our estimated impact is between 0 and 5 million. And then in fiscal year 23, you'll see that that impact goes from 800,000 to 14.1 million. Again, just based on taxpayers' behavior for the most part. The last change that I'll talk through, and then again, happy to answer any questions, is the section 287. Section 287 would delay the implementation of single sales factor apportionment. So currently, single sales factor apportionment for the business profits tax would be applicable for taxable periods ending on or after December 31st of 22. And this section would move the applicability date or the effective date out till December 31st of 2026. Just a reminder as to what single sales factor is. Currently, if you are operating a business inside New Hampshire and outside of New Hampshire, you need to apportion your income between the states that you're operating in. The way we currently, New Hampshire currently calculates the amount that should be apportioned to New Hampshire is we look at your payroll in New Hampshire, your property in New Hampshire, and your sales in New Hampshire. So you'll typically hear this referred to as 3-factor apportionment. We're looking at the 3 different factors. Single sales factor would change the way that we calculate apportionment to only look at sales in New Hampshire. And so that's the change that we're talking about here. So moving to just looking at sales in New Hampshire. We cannot calculate the fiscal impact of delaying the implementation of single sales factor at this time. And the primary reason for that is that we just made a shift to market-based sourcing. Again, how you source or where you allocate the sales of services and intangibles. Previously, New Hampshire was a cost of performance state where we look at where the services were performed. Moving to market-based sourcing, which just began on 1/1/2021. Now we look to where the customer is to source the sales. So once we have data from market-based sourcing, we can very easily calculate the impact of moving from 3-factor apportionment to single sales factor. However, if we're using our current data that we have, that is under the old sourcing method of cost of performance. So we don't have the current data in order to calculate that potential revenue impact. Those were the main things that I wanted to discuss in terms of potential revenue impacts that are in House Bill 2 that you'll see included on the surplus statement. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? Senator Rosenwald.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioner. I have 2 questions. One, what did the House put onto the positive impact for the biennium of delaying the single sales factor? What sticks in my mind is like $20 million. But what would we have to remove if we disagreed with them on that?
So good question, Senator. Looking at the surplus statement in 2023, the House has $20 million positive for delaying the implementation of single sales factor.
Okay.
My understanding, and certainly the House would be the best to probably answer this question, but based on our historic analysis of moving to single sales factor, whether or not single sales factor would be a revenue positive or a revenue negative can vary year to year. And our data, again, is under the cost of performance method, not under the market-based sourcing method. So I believe the House used the data that we have to come up with a rough estimate to include in the surplus statement. However, it should be noted that it is under the cost of performance, the older method for sourcing, and not under the current market-based sourcing method, which is why you'll see in our fiscal note, we don't attribute any positive or negative revenue to this section. We just say that it is indeterminable.
Thank you. If I could follow up, please.
Please.
Thank you. It's a slightly different question. When I add up the cumulative projections from DRA for the next 3 years, 22, 23, and 24, I get a negative number of $127 million. But my question is, given what you understand of the guidance on the Rescue Act, how and when that applies to what years, how much federal funds would we also be risking from reducing taxes? What would we add to that 127 million?
Great question, Senator. Unfortunately, I don't have an answer to that today. There are a lot of folks looking into the updated Treasury guidance that did come out early last week with respect to the potential impact or what it means to cut taxes and how that could potentially impact the American Rescue Plan money that the state is set to receive. So again, a lot of people are looking into that. I unfortunately don't have an answer to that today.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Further questions from members of the committee?
Senator Gaida,
Yes,
I have a couple of questions, if I might.
please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lindsay, first of all, thanks for your presentation. Really appreciate it. Now, if I were a taxpayer, Lindsay, and I had a fairly significant credit buildup, would I exercise those credits now, knowing that the rate is going to go down and they'd be less effective as I move forward? And do you think people will do that?
Great question, Senator. Certainly there are a lot of moving pieces here, right? With the rate reductions, with the potential rate reductions, potential cap on credit carryovers. Obviously, a well-informed taxpayer would probably make some adjustments to their filings in order to appropriately adjust their filings for what works best for their business. Some may want to keep a credit carryover on file, anticipating that the next year they're going to perform very well, right? They like having that cushion on file. Others might feel that they would like to have the cash back in their business to reinvest, to do other things. So it is really a business by business decision. We work very hard at the end of the legislative session to communicate the legislative changes. We put tax information releases on our website. We put out press releases to make sure taxpayers are informed of the changes that are coming and the applicability dates of those changes so that they can make the right choices for their business.
Thank you. A follow-up?
Please.
And Lindsay, under the Recovery Act, if indeed it's $1 for dollar for each tax you decrease, you lose $1 in terms of the money that's coming from the federal government. And you looked at that at 20. I believe those monies are going to come over a couple of year period. So if you looked at 22, 23, and possibly 24, based on what I've looked at, these are fairly significant revenue decreases based on the tax decreases. If there were $1 for dollar, what's your estimate at what that would cost us?
Good question, Senator. I have not done the math to put that together yet. Again, as we are still wading through the guidance and the clarifications that came out last week, but that's certainly something that we can put together and do a total for each fiscal year for you.
Oh, thank you. And one further question. You said that House Ways and Means is meeting this week, and they're going to look over the PPP situation as it relates to Senate Bill 3. What days are they meeting it, and they have a time certain where they have to make a decision?
Correct. My understanding is they have work sessions scheduled for Tuesday and Wednesday of this week. We will be participating and available to the committee during that time. And I believe they need to act on the bill by the very latest on Thursday, the 27th.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Lindsay.
Certainly.
Further questions? Hearing none. I'm sure we'll be back.
Certainly happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you very much, Senator.
Thank you, Commissioner, and Melissa as well. So I'd like to begin the discussion of revenues. I know Chris Shea is standing by, and he has provided for us here an updated document. And Chris, if you wouldn't mind, if you could walk us through that document, and that'll get us started down the road of bringing in all these different factors.
Certainly, Senator Gaida. Do you mind if I share my screen?
Not at all.
Okay. So right now you should see on the screen a page, an Excel page that has DRA tax estimate ranges. That should be the cover sheet of one of the documents that you have before you at your table. And Senator D'Alessandro, I emailed that to you.
Yep.
So what that information is when DRA came in and provided you their updates on May 10th, they gave you a high low for fiscal year 21, and then they gave you a percent growth, a low percent growth and a high percent growth in 22 and 23. So that table, the DRA ranges provides you with that information. So for instance, if you look at the business tax on line 4, the 947.5 was the low estimate for fiscal year 21. When you go to column C or E, depending on where you're looking, you'll see 966.5. That's a 2% growth over the 947. And then if you go to the high of 964.9, you'll see in column D, it's a growth of 6%, which is 1.022.8. So it's taking the low and growing it by the low, and then the high and growing it by the high. So you end up with a pretty big range. In the Excel document itself, you can just go in and change the percent. So you can see up in the bar where I'm moving the mouse, it's the cell times the percentage of 102%. If you wanted to make that, 3% to see what 3% looks like, you can do that, as you're going through this process. So I was trying to make it a little bit easy for you as you start to think about and start to put together the revenue estimates. The next tab is still has the House Ways and Means estimate numbers, and then it has agency estimates. So what I've done is I've populated all the agencies that came through the Senate Ways and Means, the information they provided you, except for the business tax, the meals and rooms, tobacco, I&D, and real estate transfer. Because of the ranges that are associated with those, I didn't want to make any assumptions as to what should go in these columns. So for instance, when liquor came in, they told you in fiscal year 21, they would have $133 million in revenue, in 22, 141.6, et cetera, et cetera. So at least it'll put in one place all the agency information that was provided to the committee. Again, to hopefully make it a little bit easier for you as you go through the process to populate a sheet. You should have, if you recall at the beginning of this process, I provided you a sheet that said Senate Ways and Means, where it now says agency estimates, so that you could populate that. The next tab is the highway fund. So again, I populated the agency estimates just so you could see that. And then you can make your adjustments based on what information you have and go forward. And the last tab is the fish and game. So that's pretty much what's going on with this sheet. I don't know if there's any quick questions somebody might have, but again, it was meant to make it easier for the committee to see what the agencies had testified to as you're starting to talk about your estimates. I think there's a second sheet on your table that has the empty cells if you need to write them in or want to write them in. But again, that was an Excel sheet I had sent earlier to the committee in the session.
Right. Chris, is there any display of the Senate Bill 3 impact in these spreadsheets?
No,
Okay.
no, that would be something that the committee would, if you decide to include it, we would add a line. So let me just put my screen back up again. So you should see, if I can get control of my mouse. All right. So on the page that has the general education trust funds, as you scroll down, these are all the House Bill 2 sections. House Bill 1 as well as the first two rows, which are the additional auditors that DRA has funded and the revenue associated with those positions. But row 40 through 50 are all the changes that the House had made to the governor's budget assumptions related to some of these tax changes and other changes that bills might have had, like the liquor license. So what would happen is if the Senate Ways and Means agrees that the Meals and Rooms rate reduction should stay as it is in the current bill, we would just take the 11.4 and the negative 19 moved into 22 and 23 for the Senate to show there'd be no change. And then it would calculate against the base numbers right here. And then sum everything up down below to show you, where your revenue estimates would end. The one example here is the liquor license. So in finance, there was a vote to eliminate these sections from House Bill 2. So those would be zeroed out. Right now it shows a 0 because the revenue estimate for that section was only just under $37,000 a year. So it doesn't show up as a number. But on the surplus statement, I believe Mike had included it as a number. Just to, the House had wanted to see that. But these would be zeroed out. There would be no impact as it relate to that because of the action taken in Senate Finance. And again, what happened in the House side, just as a reminder with the House Bill 2 sections, is that the House Ways and Means looked at all these at the request of House Finance and came back with their estimates that they thought the value would be associated with these changes. And that's what the House Finance Committee carried forward. Because Ways and Means and Senate Finance are pretty much the same membership, you may make some decisions later in the process on a few of these as you're looking through them and making decisions on what you really want to do. So hopefully that answers the question. I probably talked too much, but.
Yeah, would you put a line in for Senate Bill 3?
Absolutely. Yep. So I would be updating this document as the committee starts to make decisions and comes to, an agreement on something or votes to add something. So as you go through the process and you say Senate Bill 3 and we want to have a value of, I don't know, 20 million and $20 million impact in 22 and 23, I'll populate it to include that.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I think obviously there are lots of changes to some of our bigger sources of revenue. But I think today I'd like to try to complete as much as we can on the, shall we say, less involved taxes. Things like utility property tax, beer tax, those types of things. The smaller streams, we can get those out of the way so that we can then address the major changes that are proposed both in House Bill 1 and 2. Is everyone comfortable with that? All right. Hearing no objection. Let's identify those taxes that we're comfortable moving on. I think liquor should be today. Insurance. Communication. Court fines and fees. Securities. Beer tax. Other utility property tax. And I think that would get us down the road a fair amount that we start dealing with the tougher stuff here, subsequent sessions. Can't hear me? All right, I'll try to be better. Thank you, Cindy. So let's start with liquor. And we go to the agency page. If we go to the agency general fund, trust fund estimates, that would be this document. On the second page, we see the agency estimates for liquor. And I see no reason that those should be any different. I think that the liquor spiked because of the COVID. We saw that in their data. So they look at 21 at 129, 22 at 138, and then they hold it flat for 23. That's the House. The Senate, I'm sorry, the agencies 133, 141.6, and 141.2. I'm not sure that with the ongoing, if you will, relaxation of the COVID restrictions, that we might see a reduction. I'd probably be more inclined to go with the House, but I'm open to discussion. Cindy? Senator Rosenwald?
Thank you. Well, I have two thoughts. One, didn't the agency tell us that if we didn't move enforcement back, we would lose $12 million in revenue? And B, as restaurants maybe become more fully open, I don't know that I would expect alcohol sales to fall because people will just be shifting where they're consuming it. I mean, we didn't get a huge spike in liquor. We got like 3%. But I just wonder if there will be less home consumption and more restaurant consumption. And I don't know what
Good
the
point. I
effect
think that's
would
a good
be,
point.
but I'd be surprised if it fell.
Senator Hennessy?
Thank you. I agree with Senator Rosenwald. Also on her 2 points. One, and a question on one of her points, did the House include the decrease in their revenues based on taking out liquor enforcement? But another thought is the presentation that the commission gave to us regarding new stores and the additional revenue that brings in, and that they're continuing to open new stores. I see one going up in my home community. So I'm comfortable with the agency estimates as presented.
Senator Rosenwald?
But if we are going to move enforcement back, would we be adding that money back? That 12 million they estimated. That's a, I don't know what I think.
Can,
Senator Gaida, may I
yeah,
jump in?
thank you, Chris. Yeah, please. I was going to ask you to, yeah.
So the House did not make an adjustment in their revenues related to the removal of enforcement. That was done in finance after Ways and Means had provided their information, and that occurred later in the budget building process. That being said, the Senate Finance has
Right.
voted to remove that section or those sections that do eliminate the liquor enforcement and
Right.
and keeps it as it was. So your revenue estimates that were provided to you assumed, as the Department or Liquor Commission said, assumed that the enforcement would remain in place, that you would only have to make a reduction if you agreed with the House.
Okay.
The other piece I wanted to just remind the committee is that, excuse me, liquor has estimated 133 million in fiscal year 21, but I think it's important to remember that an additional $8 million was removed from the liquor revenue in 2021 and was transferred to the Granted Advantage Fund. So if that had not occurred, your revenue would be up over $141 million. So I just wanted to make sure that you remembered that.
Yeah.
And then also in that same vein, there is expected to be another transfer from the liquor fund to the Granted Advantage. We just don't have a date certain for that. And we don't know if it's going to happen at the end of 21 or the beginning of 22. And I've been trying to get information from Department of Health and Human Services, working with Karen Rounds, and I hope to have something within the next few days.
So would that be in the same amount, that withdrawal?
We don't know. That what the letter said that was sent out at the end of March is that the amount was anticipated to be less than the $8 million amount that was already transferred, but there was no exact number obtained. My understanding is there's some negotiations occurring with the providers or the managed care group and how that funding works. So that they being the department was trying to provide the best number that they could, but it's taking a little bit longer than they anticipated.
Great. I'm sorry, Senator Rosenwald.
Thank you. Do you think they might have that number for fiscal on Friday?
I would hope so. I mean, I was told last week I would have something by the end of the week, and I hadn't received anything, so they might. I'm in constant contact with Karen, and she lets me know that they're working on it, and as soon as they have something, she'll let me know. So I think it's a fair question to ask if I can't give you anything by Friday. When you go into fiscal, just to ask them to update that information.
Thank you.
Senator Daniels?
Yeah, just for clarification, on the agency estimates for 22 and 23, is that pre or post transfer figures?
So those the numbers for 22 and 23 would be a net number for the usual transfer to the Governor's Commission of Drug and Alcohol Abuse Fund, and I don't have the name correct. So that's been netted out already. But what's not considered, because they don't know, is any additional transfer related to the Granted Advantage.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I think for purposes of being conservative, we might want to take the 8 million and take maybe 4 million on an assumption until we hear otherwise for each of those two subsequent years, 22 and 23. And if and when HHS gets back to Chris, we can adjust that with finality, okay, with an actual number. But if it's 8 million, why don't we just take half of that for now? Remember, this document's going to change continually for the next couple of weeks. So I would ask if we're comfortable looking at 137.6 for each of the next 2 years, 22 and 23, with just a placebo placeholder of 4 million a year for the transfer to HHS. Senator Rosenwald?
Thank you. I'm sorry to be a pest. I think that transfer to Medicaid expansion, to the transfer to the trust fund will change over the next 2 years. So people will start falling off the rolls of Medicaid expansion because they're back at work and no longer eligible, but also redeterminations will be allowed. But if the dental benefit moves forward, that would add some costs. So I don't think we'll end up with a 0-0 transfer from the liquor fund within the next 2 years, but I'd probably be comfortable with your suggestion of 4 million. But who
Just
knows?
take half of it, and for
You know,
sake of
Who
placeholder.
knows?
Other discussion? So why don't we
Just one
Senator Dean.
more question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Will Chris, will the House make any other adjustments at this point in time?
Senator,
I think they will. They're actually meeting right now, are they not, Chris?
that's correct. They've had revenue sessions scheduled the last couple of weeks, and they have some scheduled this week. I don't know when they're going to finalize anything. I know that they aren't necessarily rushing to get that done because they just want to have the best numbers available to them. So I don't know of any timeline that it will occur. It might occur just as you're finishing your work. It might occur just before that.
Okay.
But obviously, I'm trying to monitor them as well. And
Sure.
if they do something that this may impact your work, I will certainly let you know.
Yeah.
I let the committee know.
Well, as it relates to liquor, with recovery picking up, the one, what did you say, Senator Guy, 136.7, is that, or 137.6, is that what you're proposing?
That's again, as a placeholder
Yeah.
for now, knowing that we don't have the exact figures for the transfers.
Right, okay. Yeah, I think those are, good numbers. Obviously, circumstances come about, we can make a quick adjustment. But I think those are good numbers at this point in time.
All right, so for now, do we need a motion on that to accept it? So I'd accept the motion to use those numbers for liquor, 137.6 and 137.2 for 22 and 23 respectively.
So moved.
Moved by D'Alessandro. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Daniels. Okay, Senator Rosenwald.
Yeah.
Senator Daniels.
Yes.
Senator D'Alessandro.
Yes.
Senator Hennessy.
Yes.
And Senator Gaida votes yes. So move on to the insurance tax. So the agency estimates 135,0 and 130 for 21 and 22, and then 135,0 for 23. Chris, can you refresh on the dip in 22? I don't recall it.
So with insurance, you have a true up. The way insurance works is that in the next year, you're going to pay, the agencies are going to be charging the amount that they collected this year. And then if in the next year, that amount is less, they'll true up this based on what they overpaid or underpaid. So that's one of the issues that occurs. Let me just I'm just looking at their sheet.
Sure,
just to-
sure.
Yeah, so that's primarily what it is. It has to do with the prepayment for the following year being trued up, is what they presented to you. So you see a dip in the second year because you collected more revenue this year than they had anticipated. So the agencies, when they do the next forecast, I believe there's a true up that occurs going into that next period.
All right.
But I'm not the best person with insurance. It's kind of a tricky tax because
Right.
of the various ins and outs that occur. I can pull up their presentation if it helps to see it, but like I said, it's a fairly tricky and typically because of the way the insurance premium tax is collected and the work that Norma Stallings does for the department, pretty much people just accept the estimates from them.
All right. Do we want to go with the House? Seems to reduce them a little bit. And I don't know if it's-
I'm sorry, Senator, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go, please.
So when insurance department came to you, they collect most of their information, or excuse me, their revenue in April, and they gained more revenue this year than they had anticipated. So they gave you better numbers than they gave the House. That's why there's a
Okay.
difference. Doesn't mean you have to go with those numbers. If you sense there's something happening with policy that may be working its way through the legislature, or if you think there's something else going to happen, I mean, you obviously can change those numbers. I'll mute myself now.
No, it's okay. Any members of the committee have any thoughts on that, on the agency estimates versus what we want to propose versus the House?
I'd go with the insurance department's estimates that they brought forward when they spoke to us. And based on that on that history. And remember, we have new people at the insurance department, a lot of new people there, but people that have been around a while, and they're pretty consistent in terms of their ability to estimate what the gross revenues will be. So I think insurance is in pretty good shape.
Right? Is that a motion?
I would move that. Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, move that we accept the agency estimates for 21, 2, and 3.
Second.
Seconded by Senator Rosenwald. Discussion. Hearing none. Senator D'Alessandro,
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald,
Yes.
Senator Daniels,
Yes.
Senator Hennessy, and Senator Gaida votes yes. So we'll accept the agency estimates for insurance. Communication tax. Chris, LBA, I presume that the 39-1 is an update with more recent information than the House had in March?
Yeah, that's correct. The DRA came in on the May 10th and provided you
Right.
with that information. Basically, it's a tax that's flattening out. It's plateauing and just getting the right number, around the right number is what DRA has attempted to do.
Is there a motion to accept the agency estimates as updated?
I would move it.
Okay, Senator Hennessy moved it, Senator D'Alessandro seconded. And any discussion? Hearing none. Senator Hennessy? Senator D'Alessandro?
Yes.
Senator Daniels?
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald?
Yes.
And Senator Gaida votes yes. Right. Court fines and fees.
Huh.
So looks like the court has increased its estimate for 23 and a little bit for 22. Any discussion on that? I think there's been sort of what courts have not been doing nearly as much as they normally would do because of the pandemic in 21. So, Chris, do you know what the numbers were for the courts in 20?
Yep. So the amount was, that was for plan, was actual, excuse me, was 12.3 million
In 20,
in fiscal year 20. Yep.
okay. And
And-
that was planned or actual?
That was the actual.
Okay,
Plan was 12.7.
okay. Well, any thoughts from the committee, members of the committee? Senator,
Mr. Chairman, I'm fine with the 22 agency
okay,
request. It's a pretty big jump on 23 from the House. I'd be more comfortable having that at
12.7,
or even keeping it at 12.9.
all right, so we'll
So
accept 12.3 for 21, 22 would be,
I'll go with 12.9 on that.
on 22, 12.9. 23,
Yeah. I'd be conservative with it and go to just 13.
13.0. Okay. Discussion?
Huh.
Senator D?
I think 13 might be a little high.
Okay,
That's
Question.
Little high at 13 or 13.6.
Well, you said 13, what was the number you quoted, 13.6?
No, that's what the agency is estimating. I'm saying that I think that's high.
Yes, okay.
So I
Okay.
was going to go with 13.
Yeah, I would support the 13. I think 13 is more realistic.
would you support less than that?
No, I think 13 is good.
Okay, do I hear a motion? Senator Daniels?
Yeah, I'll move the agency estimates with the exception of 2023, which would be at 13.0.
Okay. Had you changed to 12.7 for 22? I thought I heard that, but I could be mistaken.
Yeah, I'd actually, 6. Yeah, I could go with 12.7 on 22.
All right, so the motion before the committee is 12.3 plan for 21, 12.7 for 22, and 13.0 for 23. Second?
I'll
Yeah.
second it.
Okay, second by D'Alessandro. Senator Hennessy with a question.
Just for discussion purposes, we added 2 circuit court judges in finance last week. What would that do to the potential fines and fees?
It would raise them to 13 million.
It would raise it to 12.7
Yeah, but they,
and
Aaron,
13.0.
they won't come on.
Yeah.
There'll be a delayed time between.
Okay, I will go with this motion.
Okay, so moved by Daniel, second by D'Alessandro. Further questions or discussion? Again, 12.3, 12.7, and 13 even for court fines and fees. Senator D'Alessandro. All right, we're in the voting mode here.
Yes, yes.
Okay, Senator Rosenwald.
Yes.
Senator Daniels.
Yes,
Senator Hennessy.
Yes,
Senator Gaida votes yes.
I'm on a Zoom call. Can I get back?
Securities revenue. So the agency fees essentially match the house estimate, and the agency fees are identical. Does anyone see a reason to change that?
Move to approve.
Okay, I'm looking for a motion.
Second.
Hennessy moved, seconded by Rosenwald. Senator Hennessy, Senator Rosenwald.
Yes.
Senator Daniels.
Yes.
Senator D'Alessandro,
Yes,
and Senator Gaida votes yes. Great. On to the beer tax. Looks pretty consistent across the board.
I move we accept the estimates.
Okay, accept the agency estimates, 13.2, 13.2, and 13.2 for the beer tax. Is there a second? Second by Hennessy. Any discussion? Hearing none. Senator D'Alessandro,
Yes,
Senator Hennessy, Senator Daniels,
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald.
Yes.
Senator Gaida votes yes. We'll go to the other revenues. Chris, is it safe to say again that the revenues presented by the agency are more update or more recent than those put forth by the House?
That is correct, Senator Gaida.
Okay. Chris, can you summarize the components of the other revenue? I know there are numbers of them.
So there's about 141 different revenue sources that go into other.
Thank you.
So, some are very small and aren't
Thank
very.
you.
yeah.
Was that summary concise enough?
Very much so. All right, Chair would accept the motion.
Move approval.
Okay,
Second.
so Senator Rosenwald moved the
Approval of the agency estimate.
agency estimates. Second,
Second.
second by Hennessy. Any discussion? Hearing none. Senator D'Alessandro,
Yes,
Senator Hennessy.
Yes.
Senator Daniels.
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald.
Yes.
And Senator Gaida votes yes. Utility property tax. So we look at the agencies, 1,700,000 in each of the 3 years, less than house estimates. Again, presuming those are more current estimates, Chris?
Yes, they are.
Okay. All right, so is there a motion?
I'll move the agency estimates.
Senator Daniels moves the agency estimates,
second.
second by D'Alessandro. Further discussion? Chris, is there any litigation ongoing or any legislation regarding this?
I don't know, Senator Gaida. I don't know if Commissioner Stepp might have an answer to that. If she's still available on the call.
Commissioner?
Hi, Senator. No, there's no pending litigation or any legislative changes that would cause us to update our revenue estimates at this time.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Is there a motion?
Move.
D'Alessandro moves. Is there a second?
I'll second the agency estimates.
Second on the agency estimates by Hennessy. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Senator D'Alessandro,
Yes,
Senator Hennessy,
Yes.
and Senator Rosenwald.
Yes.
Senator Daniels.
Yes.
Senator Gaida votes yes. All right. Do we want to look at the swept?
well, that's going to depend on
Right.
whose education plan you look at. That there's a huge flip there. There's $100 million change based on the house.
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
possible. I would hold on that until finance has dealt with that.
Or we could just move the agency estimates.
Well, you could move the agency because the agency estimates never change.
Right. Statutory.
That's that, yeah, right.
Senator Gaida?
Yes.
This is Chris. I would recommend to get your base that you would accept the 363.1 because that's what current statute is.
Right.
If you decide to change what the House did, that's an adjustment down lower on the page. They have $100 million SWEP reduction. If the Senate decides it doesn't want to do that or wants to do something different, we would make an adjustment to that revenue lower on the estimating sheet.
And I would move, we accept the statewide education property tax at 363.1.
Second.
Second by Hennessy. All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Senator D'Alessandro.
Yes.
Senator Hennessy.
Yes.
Senator Daniels.
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald.
Yes.
And Senator Gaida votes yes. Medicaid recoveries.
Question.
Yes,
Please.
please.
Chris, do you know that the House in HB2, the governor proposed and the House maintained some changes to what the thresholds were for recoveries? Do you know if the agency estimates
Reflect that.
contemplate those House Bill 2 changes?
I don't, Senator Rosenwald. I would have to contact Karen and Meredith Tellus to see if they
I mean,
have
they're not
considered that.
big, but maybe we could just check.
Sure. So we'll hold on Medicaid recoveries.
Okay.
Yeah.
But again, if I might, Senator Gaida, this is current law that you're building your base on. So if
Okay.
there's an adjustment related to House Bill 2, we would take care of it below
There.
this line essentially.
Right.
So
Right.
I think it's okay for the committee if they're in agreement with these numbers, as based on current law, you could accept the 332725. If we talk to HHS and we find that there's an adjustment that needs to be made to the recoveries based on what's in House Bill 2, we can add a line lower on the sheet where the adjustments are for House Bill 2 and basically
All right.
deduct from the total.
So your recommendation is we move the item as it is because it's current law.
That is correct.
Okay.
Okay. So I would move the item.
Second.
Moved by D'Alessandro, second by Hennessy. Any further discussion? And Chris, thank you for that.
Thank you, Chris.
Hearing none. Senator D'Alessandro.
Yes.
Senator Hennessy.
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald.
Yes.
Senator Daniels.
Yes.
Senator Gaida votes yes.
So Senator Gaida, I will reach out to HHS just to get information related to the recoveries and the House Bill 2 sections.
Okay, thank you. Tobacco settlement, we could look at, they got a significant increase this year.
Yeah, they did. Chris, have we paid back what we were supposed to? I know there was a situation. It was either in the last biennium or the biennium before where we got some money, but we had to reimburse them with some money. Has that been settled? Is that done?
I don't know, Senator D'Alessandro. I'm not sure what occurred there. What I know is that the 47.8 is what the once the process was completed with the master settlement for the revenue that's come in this year on a nationwide level. This was the portion that was attributed back to New Hampshire.
Right.
I believe you received a letter from the Department
Yes.
of Justice, and they basically said in 22 and 23 they wouldn't move from those estimates there. They expect it to trend downward on a national level, especially with some of the proposal around the menthol type of tobacco, as well as just people buying tobacco from companies that aren't in the master settlement agreement, as well as other forms of vaping and electronic cigarettes.
All right. So is there a motion for the tobacco settlement
I'll
agency?
move. I'll
Move
move
by-
we accept the tobacco settlement numbers.
Moved by D'Alessandro. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Rosenwald. Any discussion? Hearing none. Call the roll. Senator D'Alessandro.
Yes,
Senator Rosenwald.
Yes.
Senator Daniels.
Yes.
Senator Hennessy.
Yes.
And Senator Gaida votes yes. Should we do lottery?
So, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
so the lottery is current law, correct? And any changes we make? will
Yeah.
Come out, okay.
I don't think it includes the historic horse racing, which I think will pass. And I think the number from that was 10 or 12 million.
and
But
12, I think.
yeah, and so we'll hang on. I mean, we can do this with current law and proceed, and adjustments would come down the road.
I have a question. Did the House include anything that they did in their estimates?
I think that they included the revenues from the historic racing. Didn't they do that at the final note, Chris?
Yeah,
12
so
million or something like that?
if you go to the third page of the document that I had on the screen earlier, and you go near the bottom third, you're going to see historic racing,
Right.
House Bill 2 sections, and then House Bill 626 is referenced. In 22, they attributed $6 million of revenue, and in 23, $12 million of revenue associated with that.
Yep.
So the answer is that the numbers up above are the base revenues without any changes to what the Lottery Commission offers for games. Any adjustments that would be needed would be below, as you see with the historic horse racing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Any discussion, is there a motion?
I would move, we accept the lottery revenues,
Agency revenue estimates, okay.
agency revenue estimate.
I'll
Sec-
second that.
Seconded by Hennessy. Further discussion? All right, do those estimates include, Chris, do you know, the significantly more revenues from, is it video? What am I thinking?
So the revenues that you see before you would include Keno, sports betting,
Sports
mobile access. I don't know what it was called, mobile lottery but it includes all those changes that have occurred in the last few years.
Okay.
And I think Director McIntyre talked about sports betting a little bit with you when he came in and
Correct.
indicated that's really taken off, especially now that the sports teams are coming back and playing, not just in this country, but all over the world, because you can bet on games all over the world.
All right, so the estimates for the agency then would include his considerations on the takeoff, as you will, of the sports betting?
Yep.
Okay, we're good then.
Yep.
All right, is there a motion?
So moved.
Oh, sorry about that. All right, we'll take the vote then. Senator D'Alessandro,
Yes,
Senator Hennessy, Senator Daniels,
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald,
Yes.
Senator Gaida votes yes. All right. I think I'm not prepared to move ahead with the big ones, the IND, the business profits, business enterprise, and the M&R. There's a lot of factors involved in those. I think I'm happy to discuss those. And we can base it on current law. But that law, again, we have a number of things that are in motion as we speak.
Yeah.
I'd take some advice from LBA. or DRA, either one.
Obviously, it's up to the committee on how they want to handle the estimates related to those various taxes that you referenced. To remind again, the committee, the first page gives you the DRA's high and lows based on assumptions that they've made. A little later this week, we'll be issuing our daily revenue, so you get a sense of how May might be trending with some of these taxes. So you may want to see that as you consider it. You also may want to be considering, on a national and international level, what you think is going to happen with economies and economics, generally speaking. I know that you had some testimony, about some GDP growth in the next couple of years and then flattening out. So I think there's, to echo your point, Chairman Gaida, is that there's a lot of factors to consider, and I think everybody's going to have to come to some agreement after they kind of review what they believe is important.
I think I'm not prepared to move forward with those taxes at this time. So I would, I think we've probably pretty much covered our business for the day.
Chairman Gaida,
Yeah,
I don't know, would the committee be interested in looking at fish and game revenue or highway fund revenue?
sure. Yeah, the little ones, right?
Yeah. So if you go to the last page of that document is your fish and game revenue. The agency was fairly consistent with its estimates for 22 and 23. In 21, it goes up slightly for the other category, and that's revenue that is collected, had anticipated and has collected. So they're comfortable with the $100,000 bump up in 21 from 3.6 to 3.7 million. So for that,
Right.
again, that's the fish and game fund.
Is there a motion?
I'll move the. Do we have? We only have house estimates. We don't have,
Well, you got the agency, if you go.
oh, I'm looking at the wrong thing. Sorry.
Essentially, the agency hasn't changed from what it provided Ways and Means, except for in fiscal year 21 in the
Yeah,
other
100,000.
category. Yeah, it added 100,000.
I'll move the agency estimates then.
Okay,
for
moved by
both.
Hennessy for fish and game
licenses and
agency
other.
estimates. Is there a second?
A second.
A second by Daniels. Any discussion? Hearing none. Senator Hennessy,
Yes.
Senator Daniels,
Yes.
Senator D'Alessandro,
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald.
Yes.
Senator Gaida votes yes. Highway fund, I suppose we can take care of too. So Chris, on the agency estimates for the highway fund, on the gas road toll, have they figured in the price of gasoline in their most recent estimate? It's up to $3 a gallon where I am now.
So road toll is based on the gallons. So it's a
Right.
30 cent, excuse me, not 30 cents. It's 4.6. It's like 22 cents a gallon, but there's some restricted money there.
Right.
I don't know, because this is more recent. You're seeing the gas pump prices increase, what that might have in the out years, but they were fairly conservative in the out years. Prior to the last couple of weeks, when they came into the House, there was some trending that they felt it would take a while to get back to the 132.4 that was estimated in fiscal year 21 plan, because of the more electric vehicles or better mileage vehicles being on the road. People weren't traveling as much, obviously in 20 and most of 21. And so they just think they're going to see a little bit of an uptick in some of that. But again, because it's a fixed rate on the road toll, if you have a better vehicle that doesn't need to buy as much gas, you don't get as much revenue.
right? There'll be more of those, but also I'm concerned that people may travel less as the price of gasoline goes up. I mean, there's a lot of pent up demand, but I'm just wondering if that was factored in. It looks like they're pretty conservative, as you said.
I mean, really where the estimates had changed is that because they're almost done this fiscal year, they're able to say instead of being at 114.4 where the house was with the road toll in
Right.
21, they bumped it up to 116.1. And the same with the motor vehicle fee. So they based it on their year-to-date activity and then what they assume would happen the last 2 months of the year.
All right, is there a motion?
I'll move the agency estimates.
Okay, Senator Hennessy moves the agency estimates. Senator Rosenwald seconds. Any discussion? I'm actually wondering if 116.1 is going to be high enough for this year because there's a whale of a lot of traffic out there.
And you and I have started driving to Concord again. And you and I have started driving to Concord again.
I know. That's 3% of the whole gas toll, road toll. I would maybe increase fiscal 21 to like maybe 117.
Chairman, I think I would be hesitant on that because I think one of the things you're considering while the number of cars picking up, I think that having gone through COVID, I think there'll probably be a lot of companies that are going to be letting their employees work from home because it's something that they were reluctant to do before, but then they're forced to do it. If they see that that has been successful, I think that you will see less cars on the road. So, you know, it's kind of a give and
Balance.
take. I think I'd just as soon go the conservative route and say the 116.
Excellent point. All right, it's been moved and seconded. Might as well take the vote. Senator Hennessy, Senator D'Alessandro,
Yes.
Senator Daniels,
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald.
Yes.
Senator Gaida votes yes. All right, motor vehicle fees.
I thought we were doing the whole thing.
I thought we did the whole thing.
We did the whole thing. Okay, very good. Thank you. Not much left.
Business taxes, meals and rooms, tobacco, I&D, and real estate transfer.
We could do tobacco, I think, if we haven't already.
Mr. Chairman, if we can wait on the things that are not marked on the page we've been working on.
Okay,
um,
the ret. and-
I think I would like a little bit of time to look over the information that's been given us and just to take into consideration some of those things that Chris has talked to us.
Very good. Is that a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
Moved and seconded by Hennessy. Senator Daniels,
Yes.
Senator Hennessy.
yes.
Senator D'Alessandro,
Yes,
Senator Rosenwald.
Yes.
Senator Gaida votes yes. We are adjourned. Thank you.
thank you very much.
Chris, you'll be updating the spreadsheets.
Yep, I can update them and I'll send them out to the committee.
Okay. Would any of the committee be interested in a work session with DRA and LBA to go through each of the taxes individually and all the factors that impact? I'm going to study all the literature, but I'd be first, if there's an interest, we can do it, and then we can look to schedule it during our spare time. Yeah. Right. Right. Good federal. Yeah. Chris, did you hear that?
I did not.
Okay, so Senator Hennessy would like an update, and the committee as a whole, on federal action being taken on the mentholated tobacco.
Okay.
That's going to impact sales of tobacco. Obviously, we're getting a bump in it because Massachusetts has outlawed it. But if the feds outlaw it in total, that would impact our revenues down the road.
Correct.
Right. That would include vaping as well. Yeah. All right. Thank you all. Chris, thank you.
You're
Commissioner
welcome.
Stepp, thank you. And most importantly,